It's my absolute pleasure to now welcome to the stage Sally Rippin, how do I introduce a woman like Sally who has touched and changed the lives of so many children and families in Australia over so many years, but particularly since April 2010 with the launch of her incredible Billy B. Brown series, which followed very quickly with her Hey Jack series, and she's got a fantastic new title launching later this year as well as the amazing series that she and Fiona Harris and Scott Edgar are about to talk you through. Sally Rippin Presents is a fantastic new venture for Sally and 5 Mile. I'm so proud to have our business working with Sally in this way. Sally is the unofficial, but in everyone in this room, I'm sure you agree, the very much official ambassador for all things good in children's books and literature, not only as an author, but as someone who can pick a fantastic book a mile away. Sally's been behind so many of Australia's leading authors who have emerged via the connections that Sally's been able to make behind the scenes in the publishing industry. And this list, if nothing else, represents an amazing possibility for Sally to be able to be bringing these voices to Australian families. I'm going to hand over to Sally and her wonderful team now.
Thank you, Tash. I think one of the most wonderful things about the Billy B. Brown series is that it really opened me up to a world that I hadn't been exposed to before. So I've been writing, like a lot of people that you'd seen on the screen or other people that you've met tonight, since I was very young. And so I started out as an illustrator and I was writing at the same time. And the Billy B. Brown series were published probably 15 years into my career, and they were literally life-changing. Not only because so many young people out there began reading the books, but I also got an opportunity to really reach a broader audience than I'd ever been able to before. So partly this was due to working with Tash at Hardy Grant and the initiative, I guess, that she's talked about here tonight, which is really making sure that everybody can have access to great stories and great books. So as we know that books can be quite expensive for some families. Some families might find even bookstores quite intimidating places to be. Children that grow up in households that perhaps don't have English as a first language may not feel that they could have parents that maybe can afford to buy them books or know even how to get hold of these books. So a lot of the touring that I would do with the Billy B. Brown books was really introducing me to a whole new demographic of children. One, because the books were very affordable, the language was very accessible, so a lot of teachers and parents had told me they'd use them with children who had learning difficulties or children who'd had English as a second language. But it also meant that I was able to meet a really broad range of people in the publishing industry, like Tash as well, who were really passionate about making sure that kids can get hold of books as well. Another really lovely aspect of having the Billy series published is that I've also met a lot of really wonderful people along the way that I have been able to mentor, both as a teacher and also through having a successful series. A lot of those people I'm very happy to send off into the world and do their own thing with their own publishers and hopefully have a grand success. But I wasn't quite ready to let go of these two wonderful people to my left. And Fiona Harris I met when she was working on a young adult novel that is pretty fantastic. And I said to her, look, I really feel like you have the potential of writing a really great young children's series. Have you ever given that any thought? And Fiona, who's up for everything, has written for children in theatre and has written up for everything. We haven't scripted this, obviously. But has also written for, I guess you would call them upper primary, middle grade novels as well. Was really up for the challenge. So we sat down and we brainstormed some ideas, and we came up with this idea of the everyday superhero. And I'll let Fiona talk a little bit more about where the idea came from. But straight away, I felt like this was an idea that Tash might be interested in. And there's a little bit of a lovely story. So Tash and Nikki were really encouraged by the idea of meeting Fiona and Scott straight away, and we met at the Tin Pot Cafe up in North Fitzroy. I ran a little bit late, but by the time I arrived there, they were all very bonded, because apparently Tash had not only walked in the wrong door or almost through the glass door, tried to walk in the wrong door, but had also slipped as she entered and almost fallen into Scott Edgar's lap. So by the time I got there, everybody was already on very close terms. I think I was only 5 minutes late and you guys were already completely bonded. So we chatted about this idea, and there was an instant feeling of excitement and electricity. Straight away we knew we were in the right hands. And then, as I often do when I mentor people, I was ready to just jump ship and say, all the best, I really hope it goes well for you. And I just thought, I'm not letting this one go. This is something I feel really, really excited by. So Tash and I came up with a solution, which essentially became Sally Rippin Presents, that rather than authoring the book, I would work with Fiona, we would brainstorm the stories together, collaborate on the stories, and the little backstory behind this, which I think is really lovely, is when Fiona and I were brainstorming the story, she said, I've got a friend who can illustrate. Do you reckon we could ask and see if he might be interested? Now, I can't tell you as an illustrator how many times people say to me, I have a friend who can draw. And so I said, oh, well, look, maybe he could send through some pictures first of all. And as you'll see, I was completely blown away by Scott Edgar's drawings. I'd already known him as a musician and a comedian and lots of other wonderful things, and an actor, but had no idea he could draw. But apparently, when you get to tell us a little bit about this is how you started out. So this was a pretty exciting collaboration. So Tash then was able to offer me this ongoing opportunity, which I hope really to be able to bring some great ideas. I must say I feel incredibly daunted by your list. You have some amazing books coming up, but we've also brainstormed some amazing ideas, and we're talking to Valanga Koza, who's a musician and a storyteller, Davina Bell, who's already written stories before, Martine Murray, Nova Wheatman, all about this idea of collaborating on ideas that provide really great quality books that are really accessible for kids. And I think I'm allowed to mention that we're potentially, hopefully, going to attach a foundation to Sally Rippin Presents as well, because both Tash and I believe really strongly that there are lots of ways that you can help children that really need that connection to books, even in families that may not know how to access them. So we're still working out how we're going to do this, but I think I'm allowed to put that on the record right now. So without further ado, I will introduce these incredible super Moopers. And first of all, Fiona Harris, who can give you a little bit of a background in her writing and career. And then Scott is going to give you a bit of a slideshow. So can we introduce Fiona Harris?
Yeah, can you
click this?
yeah,
there we go. Oh, no,
can
it's
you
click.
just stand next to me?
Sure,
You
I'll
have-
stand,
there you
I'll
go.
stand here. Okay,
Just a
good.
bit of support.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks.
that's
So yes, hello everyone. My name's Fiona. My background is in acting. I'm an actor and a writer, but mainly in television. I've done that for many years with him and him. We'll get to him. And yes, I had written a couple of little chapter books as well. But when I met Sally and showed her this other young adult novel I was writing, and she was very great and gave me her time, was very generous. And then we just started talking about other ideas, and this whole idea I'd had for rubbish superheroes, basically. Just, sort of put the kettle on girl, bubble wrap boy, fly down and do your homework girl. We just started, because this was something I did with my kids that I teach, because I also teach comedy and drama to kids. And so that was something I'd done with my kids, which they really loved, and it was a lot of fun. So we started talking about that, and that morphed into, having everyone has a quality that they might see as being not that great, but that actually can be a good thing, and valuing yourself regardless of who you are and how different you are. And that is what, and yes, so Mr. Men, thank you for that reminder. When we first started talking about the idea, I said the idea that I have is for a sort of Mr. Men world, where you have a world and everyone in it has a different quality. And so that was, and the Smurfs was another reference that we talked about. You can click now. Yeah. Oh, there we go. So Scott and I met at a convent because we also, Scott and I did a show called Skit House together, which was a sketch comedy show on Channel 10 many years ago. We actually met when we were 19 because he was living with a friend of mine. And then when he started Tripod, which is his I would film their early gigs at Mietta's. I was the camera woman for them.
Really?
How can you not know that? Didn't know what was going on back then.
I was pretty drunk.
And then, years later, we ended up in Skid House together, and we did that together for 3 years, and that was clearly characters.
That was before we got into our costumes for the day.
Yeah. So Scott and I worked on Skid House together, and have stayed very good friends ever since. And so yes, are we up to that bit then? You? Are we up to you?
So I've always loved to draw. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. That was still do.
Thank you.
So I had a lot of influence. I was really passionate about drawing from a very young age, and I really nerded out on who my favourites would be for this present. It took me a week to just do these 4 slides. There's a bit of Rackham for you, and of course Dr. Seuss, huge influence. And so when I was brought on board, we started kind of iterating. It was very kind of open-ended at that early phase. As you can see, we were casting a very wide net as far as whether those characters were going to be humans or little blobs or, somewhere in that continuum, somewhere in between. And so we really started firing off a little bit of a Princess Leia in there as well. I don't know quite why. So we really just started firing images around and really kind of trying to hone in on what the Moopers would look like. This was where we started to get close here, and then the next image I think you'll see is that's what we took to 5 Mile, and that's the point at which Tash tumbled into our lives, and we started getting serious about where to take it from there. And then we found our 4 characters, who are these ones here: Nervous Nelly, Musical Marcus, Dramatic Dom, and Giggling Gertie are the 4 books that we're presenting. And we needed to find out what Mooper Town was as well. The first words I read on the first manuscript was "Welcome to Mooper Town." So straight away, my imagination started firing as to what that might look like. And we had all sorts of correspondence about, is it a village? Is it in a forest? Is it in a valley? Is it in a forest that's in a valley? Is it in on a mountain in a forest in a valley? I think what we got to. And this page was kind of late at night watching telly. I kind of hit on this green roof, this kind of garden flower pot idea, this sort of shape language for the houses, which felt like it really zinged. So at this point, we really felt like we were getting close to what Mooper Town was going to look like.
And what was in it? Was there a bakery? Was there a library?
Yeah.
Was there a town hall?
That's
so that was lots of fun.
And it's really feeling to me a lot like, and I don't know if I've had this conversation with you guys, but it feels like the idea of community is really central to these books, and the way these characters help each other out and the way they go about their sort of daily lives. So
I want to live there.
Yeah, I want to live there too. I reckon it'll be great fun. We're working on Giggling Gertie right as we speak, and we get that building on the right is the first ever drawing of the Mooper Town Hall, and we're really starting to kind of find what that's all about at the moment. That's really fun. What have we got next? Oh yes, the name.
So. Scott introduced us to Slack, because we're not as technologically minded as he is, but he told us about this thing called App. So we all communicate, Tash and Nikki and us, on Slack. And before they joined us on Slack, we were always tossing ideas around, and we were trying to think of a name. And so I sent through those names, to which Sally Rippin replied, "I'm sorry, but to me these just sound like pet names for breasts."
They really are. I mean, you got Jubbly's third.
I wrote, "Thanks very much, Sally, you've got a filthy mind." And then Scott, and then there was a bit more correspondence, and then Scott just jumps in with, "Now I'm just thinking about boobs." And I wrote, "What's new?" And that continued, that gave us a lot of joy for a couple of days, because when I looked at it again, a lot of boob names in there.
There's a lot of boobs in there.
Babbies.
If they weren't nicknames for boobs before, they are now.
You're welcome to them, everybody.
It was Moopers that we ended up at. So we've just got some pictures from the books for you now. This is the Mooper Town Library. This is Marcus going into the library. Now Marcus has got an issue where he sings a lot, not necessarily fitting into the library environment terribly.
Which is why the librarian has that face.
Yes, and she's one of those characters that's cropping up a lot in crowd scenes and so forth. And in fact, in one of the kind of big town, you can see a little optometrist, and she's like the optometrist's only customer. Like, she's the only Mooper that wears glasses, but it's not a great business plan. So what do we got? Oh yes, this is Dom. You want to talk about?
Yeah, so Dom is kind of, well, Sally's son's name is Dom, but my husband is a bit of a dramatic Dom. So that's sort of where the idea morphed from. But basically Dom is just a little bit, and my husband is an actor, so he's an actor as well, so he's allowed to be dramatic. But it's that character who everything is just, oh my God! And everyone's just like, chill out, Dom, it's going to be fine. But it's a lovable quality as well, as you would know if you know those people. Yes, they can get very, excited about things and over the top about things, but sometimes that comes in handy, as, we will see in this book. But yes, as you can see from the expressions on the Moopers' faces, they're all a bit used to Dom, just running around, getting very dramatic about things, and I think Dom is my favourite in terms of his expressions. It's very funny.
Oh, he's a lot of fun to draw. I've got a little personal theory about Dom. If he stands straight, his arms actually are longer than his body. Like, they would actually flop on the ground. So that's why he's in the habit of just keeping them up all the time. He's self-conscious about, and that's our second reference to the Trevi Fountain today. So what's next? Oh yes, Nellie. This is an example of Nellie in the cinema. Why Mr. Fossick would wear that hat to the cinema, I don't know. Maybe that's the subject of another book.
He will have his own book one day.
Yeah, and you can see Dom being fairly dramatic next to Nellie there as well. So yes, and here's Dom rehearsing for his first play in the Mooper Town Park.
Talk about the tent?
The tent. Do you want to talk about the tent?
Oh, there's a little lovely reference in there. So my partner and I also run a storytelling tent. Called Story Peddlers. And I believe, and we're still talking about this, that at the Melbourne Writers' Festival we're going to have some Moopers Meet Story Peddler events. So we will keep you posted on those. So there's a lovely little reference to the Story Peddlers tent in there. So.
Well, that was one of those ones where it was right in front of me the whole time. I was drawing different theatres and what it would look like in the park. And I was like, Sally's already got a theatre and it looks like that. Here's a scary, exciting moment. This is Mr. Berry. He's the milk delivery person. That's his job.
That's all they drink in Mooper Town.
Just milk.
Just milk. All the time.
A big bottle industry too. Lots of different bottles available in Mooper Town.
Is there a bottling? There is a bottling.
There's a bottle factory. Yeah, that's the only factory in all of Mooper Town is the bottle factory.
And it's very eco-friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. This is a key moment that's happening in all the books, isn't it?
Yes. So the whole idea was, the whole superhero thing, because we lost that, obviously, the whole it's superheroes. But what we did keep, because we loved, was the super Mooper and the cape, because we all loved a cape. So that is basically what happens in each book, is we go on a journey with the character and we see how at some point they might not think that who they are is a great thing, but by the end it obviously helps someone or some situation, and they become, thanks to Nicky Bird, which I'll let you talk about Nicky Bird, a super Mooper. And that's the whole idea behind the Moopers, but I'll let you tell them about Nicky Bird.
Well, we spent a lot of time on how the cape works, how they get the cape, where does it come from, because as you know, kids can tend to think quite literally, and why is there suddenly a cape here? And throughout the books, you'll find this little character who you can see in the bottom right there, who we've named Nicky Bird after our marvellous editor. And Nicky Bird is just kind of watching the whole valley. She's always there, and always kind of present in the adventures and the misadventures, narrating often, having opinions, editorialising. But when she decides that one of the Moopers has really nailed it for the day, she grants them the cape, as you can see her approaching there on the left, and the Moopers get to wear the cape. But of course, the Nicky Bird, if you look carefully, and this is part of the art as well, there's a lot of little details you can find, little stories and little moments. And if you look carefully in each book, Nicky Bird always takes the cape away again at the end for the
They
next
don't
person.
get to keep it.
Well, the logic didn't work for me. I'm like, if they get to keep it, then by the end they'll all be wearing capes, so it won't work. So you've got to take it back again. So yes, that's kind of just the magical little kind of mantle you get to wear just for the day if you've done well. I think we might have one. Oh, there we are.
Oh, there's Marcus singing happily at the end of his book.
He's heading home, back to his little home. So that's the series.
That's super Moopers.
Hope you like it.
So it feels really exciting to be working with Fiona and Scott, and we'll be doing lots of touring a little bit later in the year, and you'll be hearing much more from these guys. And thank you so much, Tash, for this amazing opportunity for me to spread my wings a little bit as well.